apparently people around the league wouldn't be shocked if Brandon Staley were the next defensive coordinator for the 49ers. What are you hearing on this front, Jose?
Florio, man, no, don't do that. I mean, look, I'll say this. I was listening to a little bit of Guy Haberman's points about like they share. No, John Middlecoff, excuse me. They share the same agent, I think, Kyle Shanahan and Brandon Staley. So I guess that would make sense first and foremost, right? You know, his agent's gonna be like, "Hey, Kyle, I saw you fired your coach. Like, what's up? Like, here's another guy who's pretty much like your stepbrother in terms of the football world because I'm both your guys' agent." But no, after you do your little like your little appropriateness of like, oh, I'll see what's up to him. No, keep him far away. I understand that he was an excellent defensive coordinator on like the stats wise, that 2020 COVID year. Like his stats go like they were top 3 in sacks, top 3 in rushing yards per game, top 3 in passing yards per game, scoring defense. Like that defense had it all. That was a great defense, but that was 1 year. And then we got to see how he worked as a head coach, calling the plays for the Chargers. You know, it'd be one thing if he wasn't calling the plays. He was calling the plays, and with a probably arguably the same, if not more, stacked roster. And everything was just completely bad. And my thing about him is, what's one thing that the 49ers defense loves? Like they take pride in their leaders, right? Their culture. And that's something you definitely do not ever saw at one point with the Chargers under Brandon Staley, failing to be held himself accountable, failing to do so many things as a leader. And his team never could buy in. So no, keep him far the hell away from this team. He's the last person you want to hire. I'd rather bring Steve Wilkes back than have him be the guy.
Yeah. I mean, he has experience in the NFC West. But he was just a defensive coordinator. To your point, he was a defensive coordinator for 1 year, 2020. Before then, he was, his ascent is crazy, man.
So quick.
He was just hanging around. Let me go through. I'm going to start on Wikipedia real quick. He was just hanging around in college. He was at John Carroll, James Madison, went back to John Carroll, was the defensive coordinator at John Carroll. I don't even know where that is. Somehow Vic Fangio discovered him, brought him to the Bears as an outside linebackers coach, brought him to Denver as an outside linebackers coach, and just the association with Fangio gets him a DC job at the Rams. He's there for 1 year, does a good job, and then he's a head coach. Like, wow, that happened fast.
Little experience, very little. And when you look at the 49ers roster, does it look like their coaches, has it ever looked like, even when Shanahan first took over, they're a team that really, Kyle Shanahan's a guy that really looks for that very minimal experience? No. Like, I know he gave DeMeco Ryans essentially his first gig, but that's a former player, a high-level player at that, someone that I think he kind of had experience with in Houston. So this guy would just be like, other than the fact you have that that agents relations, it just makes no sense right now. There's a reason why he's still available right now, right? There's been plenty of defensive coordinator spots that he could have been plucked from, but no one's really tapping his shoulder.
Look, I don't have strong feelings about Brandon Staley. I know he did a great job his 1 year at the Rams. I know he's got Vic Fangio and John Fox in his corner, and those are two coaches I respect. So I don't know. But my question, I also respect Steve Wilkes, is where I'm coming from. And my question with Brandon Staley is, why would he be better than Wilkes? Because the issue with the Niners said is, hey, nothing against him as a man or as a mind. It was a bad fit. He didn't know what we want to do. Why is Staley different? Staley runs a 5-man front. Staley does his own thing. I mean, he's from the Vic Fangio tree, not the Robert Saleh, Pete Carroll tree. So wouldn't you be doing the same exact thing, bringing an outsider, no one knows him, asking him to run a scheme he doesn't run? Or are you going to ask the entire defense to run a 3-4 now? Is that what you're going to do for Brandon Staley? Is that what you're going to do? I don't think so. So look, I don't like the Brandon Staley thing. I think it's a bad fit for him. I think it's a bad fit for the Niners. Can you tell us about Daniel Bullocks? Because he seems like the guy, like the next man up inside the organization.
Yeah, I would love for him. If you're going internal, you got to go him, which is kind of funny because I know Kyle Shanahan said a little bit about that disconnect with the defense because Wilkes does have that defensive background. I'm going to call cap on that. It's like, okay, look, I can understand to a degree, but I think from the moment me and you were talking after I relayed to you, my sense of interviewing the players is the reason why I believe Bullocks is a good fit is because his mind and the way the players support him. From the moment it seemed pretty obvious over time is Steve Wilkes was kind of viewed as an outsider. I think me and you kind of felt that way. Like, dude, is he kind of get a look at the outsider? Not like they hate him or dislike him, but it's like, look, man, you're coming in, stepping into this championship caliber defense. You got to do things our way because you don't really have a good resume on your hand anyways, right? Wilkes didn't. And look, I advocated for Wilkes last year saying, I think it'd be a good fit. I think I was on the stream
He had
saying
like head coaching experience, but his DC experience wasn't overwhelming.
it's just very there's a reason why Wilkes for the last like 5 years, 6 years has really been like one and done everywhere, whether it's Missouri, whether it's Arizona, whether it's Carolina, wherever he's been, right?
Mm-hmm.
So not saying like he's a terrible person or anything, a terrible coach, but like there's a reason why, like there's just some reason why he can never find a fit. And here it was always hard. Now you have a guy on your own ranks that you could bring up that's been with you since 2017. And look, Tashawn Gibson had the most to rave about Daniel Bullocks when I asked him about, hey, Tashawn, what can you say about Daniel Bullocks that he's done to your growth to players like Hufanga, yourself, Charvarius Ward, Lenore? And he said, look, DB doesn't get enough credit. I would not be here without if he was not here. And that he's literally a Kyle Shanahan guy where you can go talk about family and then literally out of the middle of nowhere, just be like, so what about cover 2? It's like, what? Whoa, what? So there's a reason why Kyle Shanahan brought him on. He's been there since 2017. And before that, I think he had like about 4-5 years of experience with Jacksonville as assistant DB coach, assistant safety, all these things. He's slowly working up the totem pole, the hierarchy of coaching. And it just feels like at this point, he has like a solid 8 to 9 years of experience and just the intellect he has, and there's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of players on his resume that he's really groomed and such. I'll say this too. The reason why I also like him, I tried to get players, or at least Charvarius Ward off the top of my head. I try to get Charvarius Ward like, hey, in the OTAs, you mentioned you hope Steve Wilkes, defensive background, can be a guy that gets you to All-Pro. He's never been All-Pro. He's mentioned that. He's like, oh yeah, I would hope he can get me there. When I asked him on that media night about, hey, like you finally had your All-Pro year, you cited Wilkes, like what can you say about him that got you there? And he's like, oh yeah, putting me in position. But then but then afterwards, he literally, after he says he put him in position, the whole time he's saying like, oh, I think it's more so because of me though. Like, and I'm kind of paraphrasing here. He's like, it's pretty much because of me. If I put my head into it, if I lock in, if I'm the one that digs in, I know I can always done it. So I think the difference was with me. And it's like, whoa, that's kind of a little bit of different tune from OTAs. Not saying like, he's poo-pooing Wilkes so much, but it's like pretty much like, look, like cool, Wilkes was there, but that was all because of me, baby. All because of All-Pro. So it's like the players are saying that. You got Nick Bosa after the game. We weren't prepared because of Wilkes. You got him at what? I think Bosa also said week 7. Like, yeah, I think he's not adjusting to us yet. Like when your top caliber players are saying that was done. So I don't think they would say that.
They never bought in.
They'd be more patient.
They never bought in. Wilkes was screwed. They never bought in. That's why I don't think you bring in Staley. He's another outsider that the players could turn on. I mean, everyone liked Wilkes when they were 5-0, right? They lose a couple games and it's like, what are you doing? Get out of the booth. What? Like, that's not how we do it here. So that, I mean, they could do that to anyone. It's a very powerful, highly paid defense. Seems like they like Bullocks. Seems like they'd be bought into him. I think that's what the direction they're going to go. That's my best guess.
I just think they'd be scared. Kyle would be scared because that DB type of situation versus linebacker. That, it does kind of play a little bit of a factor, but I think at that point, it's like, hey, look, the difference between that is at least like Daniel Bullocks has rose up and he's been around these guys since you've been a head coach. So
yeah, I mean, he was in Jacksonville with Robert Saleh. You're right. He was with Jacksonville with Robert Saleh. Like he has that. He's part of the culture that they built. Steve Wilkes wasn't. He played safety. I don't know.
Him,
yeah. All right. So we'll see. I still think Daniel Bullocks is the favorite. I wish there would be a prop bet we could bet on this one.
Because I'm not sure who else they would look internally, right? Like Kasaric, I think if Kasaric would have had it by now. It seems he's very
Johnny Holland, but it doesn't seem like they look at him that way. I don't know why.
Does he even want it? Like that's the thing too. Like to me, like you can also say the same thing as Bullocks want it. And in my head, it's like, well,
see, to me, hold on. To me, with Kasaric, the reason he doesn't want it, my best guess is he's already making 7 figures coaching the D line. Like, I don't know that Johnny Holland is making 7 figures coaching linebackers, and I think it'd be a huge raise. Yeah, dude. Yes. I remember last year, someone asked Bobby Turner during offseason, hey, man, are you kind of like Chris Kasaric? Like, he just doesn't want to be a coordinator. He just wants to be a D-line coach. Are you like that too? Kind of like leading him that direction. And Bobby was like, no, I would have loved to be an offensive coordinator or a head coach, but the owners just never saw me fit to do that. I was like, oh, wow. So you never assume what people want to do. And I feel like a lot of times, not to get racial here, but African-American older coaches get pigeonholed as, hey, this guy knows one thing. He can possibly be, on the fast track to being a coordinator, head coach like this smart guy over here. And I mean, D'Amico Ryans was fast tracked, Saleh was fast tracked, but sometimes there's these longtime position coaches who get stuck, pigeonholed. And I wonder if Johnny Holland has aspirations for more. He's been so successful as a position coach. Like, why not? I hope he gets interviewed.
The hesitation from Kyle is also like, maybe in his head is like, I wouldn't mind these guys being elevated, but I just love you so much where you're at. Like in the sense of Kasarik, you move Kasarik to defensive coordinator. He's not hands-on with those defensive linemen anymore, right? Not nearly as much. And whoever you're going to fill in there, like, what if you don't get that same little push, those roundabout developments that you've been able to do with Kasarik? And considering Kyle loves the trenches, or mostly the defensive line part, right? Maybe he just wants to keep him there. Maybe he's just like certain guys there. It's like, I just like you guys there. Mm-hmm. And it's not saying so much that you can do a different job, but I just love you guys so much there.
Right. Like, could they replace Bobby Turner as the running backs coach? Clearly not. Could they replace Johnny Holland as the linebackers coach? He's done such a good job developing those superstars. The
reason why they're still there, right? For all these years, look at the coaches that have gone. DB coaches have gone, like Joe Woods. I think another DB coach. The quarterbacks coaches have been gone. Tight ends coach, wide receiver coaches. Those are the ones that are always a revolving door. But never defensive line, not linebacker, not running backs, right?
Yeah.